Thokozani emakhosini kamako. Thank you for joining me for another video. In this video, we will be looking at the ancestral spirit UMNDIKI. This teaching will not delve in too deep spiritually as to protect the sacred art, but also not to confuse anyone on their journey, as we could have the same spirit, but originating from different parts on the continent. So please take everything with a pinch of salt. So UMNDIKI is someone who is from the Mande people, also known as Mandinka, Malinka, or Mandingo people. Connected by blood, these are one of our oldest ancestors within the Niger-Congo group. So let's get into it. Who are the Mandingo people? The Mandinka or Malinke are a West African ethnic group primarily found in southern Mali, the Gambia, or eastern Guinea. Numbering about 11 million, they are the largest subgroup of the Mande peoples and one of the largest ethnic linguistic groups in Africa. They speak the Manding languages in the Mande language family and a lingua franca in much of West Africa. Over 99% of Mandinka adhere to Islam. They are predominantly subsistence farmers and live in rural villages. Their largest urban center is Bamako, the capital of Mali. So we have the languages written over there and the predominant religion Islam and related ethnic groups. The Mandinka are the descendants of the Mali Empire, which rose to power in the 13th century under the rule of King Sundiata Keita, who founded an empire that would go on to span a large part of West Africa. They migrated west from the Niger River in search of better agricultural lands and more opportunities for conquest. Nowadays, the Mandinka inhabit the West Sudanian Savannah region, extending from the Gambia and the Casamance region in Senegal to the Ivory Coast. Excuse me, guys. Although widespread, the Mandinka constitute the largest ethnic group only in the countries of Mali, Guinea, and Gambia. Most Mandinka live in family-related compounds in traditional rural villages. Their traditional society has featured socially stratified castes. Mandinka communities have been fairly autonomous and self-ruled, being led by a chief and group of elders. Mandinka has been an oral society where mythologies, history, and knowledge are verbally transmitted from one generation to the next. Their music and literary traditions are preserved by a caste of griots known as jellies, as well as guilds and brotherhoods like the Donso, which are hunters. Between the 16th and 19th centuries, many Muslim and non-Muslim Mandinka people, along with numerous other African ethnic groups, were captured, enslaved, and shipped to the Americas. They intermixed with slaves and workers of other ethnicities, creating a Creole culture. The Mandinka people significantly influenced the African heritage of descended peoples now found in Brazil, the southern United States, and to a lesser extent, the Caribbean. The history of Mandinka people started in the Manden or Mande region, what is now southern Mali. Hunters from the Ghana Empire founded the Mandinka country in Manden. The mythical origin of the Malinke and the Bambara people are their mythical ancestors Contran and Sanin, the founding hunter brotherhood. The country was famous for the large number of animals and game. that it sheltered, as well as its dense vegetation, so was a very popular hunting ground. The Kamara believed to be the eldest family to have lived in Mandin after having left Olata, a region of the Ghana Empire in the southeast of present-day Mauritania, due to drought. They founded the first village of Manding, Kirikoroni, then Kirina, Selby, Kita. A large number of families that make up the Mandinka community were born in Mandin. Manding is the province from which the Mali Empire started, under the leadership of Sundiata Keita. The Mandin were initially a part of many fragmented kingdoms that formed after the collapse of the Ghana Empire in the 11th century. During the rule of Sundiata Keita, these kingdoms were consolidated and the Mandinka expanded west from the Niger River basin under Sundiata's general Tiramakan Traore. This expansion was part of creating a region of conquest according to the oral tradition of the Mandinka people. This migration began in the later part of the 13th century. So let's take a look at the Mali Empire. The Mali Empire was an empire in West Africa from 1226 to 1670. The empire was founded by Sundiata Keita and became renowned for the wealth of its rulers, especially Mansa Musa Keita. The Manding languages were spoken in the empire. At its peak, Mali was the largest empire in West Africa, widely influencing the culture of the region through the widespread of its language, laws, and customs, meaning its culture. So that's just some information about the Mali Empire. Let's continue. The empire began as a small Mandinka kingdom at the upper reaches of the Niger River, centered around the Manding region. Around the 11th and 12th centuries, an empire began to develop following the decline of the Ghana Empire to the north. During this period, trade routes shifted southward to the savannah, stimulating the growth of states such as Bono State. The early history of the Mali Empire before the 13th century is unclear, as there are conflicting and imprecise accounts by both Arab chroniclers and oral traditionalists. Sundiata Keita is the first ruler for which there is accurate written information. Sundiata Keita was a warrior prince of the Keita dynasty who was called upon to free the local people from the rule of the Soso Empire. The conquest of Soso in 1235 gave the Mali Empire access to the trans-Saharan trade routes. Mande, or also called Mali or Mandingo, group of peoples of Western Africa, whose various Mande languages form a branch of the Niger-Congo language family. The Mande are located primarily on the Savannah Plateau of the Western Sudan, although small groups of Mande origin whose members no longer exhibit Mande culture traits are found scattered elsewhere, as in the tropical rainforests of Sierra Leone, Liberia, and the Côte d'Ivoire. Some of the most well-known Mande groups are the Bambara, Malinke, and Sisonke. The Mande peoples have been credited with the independent development of agriculture about 3000 to 4000 BC, and upon this agricultural base rested some of the earliest and most complex civilizations of Western Africa, including the Sisonke state of Ghana and the Empire of Mali, which reached its height early in the 14th century. Descent, succession, and inheritance are patrilineal. Marriage is polygynous, the incident of polygyny varying considerably from group to group. The social structure especially among Muslim groups, often exhibits a pronounced hierarchical ordering from royalty and noble lineages to commoners, low-status artisan castes, and formerly slaves. Mande agriculture is based on shifting hoe cultivation. Staple crops are millet, sorghum, and rice. There are also a wide variety of other crops. Cattle are kept but are important mainly in terms of prestige and bride price payments. Trade, both local and with distant Arab and other groups, has always been of great economic importance. So we have learned who the Mandinka people are and how they relate to us. They are one of the oldest ancestors to the Bantus. Therefore, it would make sense that today this ancestor would bring us ancient knowledge and wisdom. UMNDIKI. These spirits bring one back to their roots as they are our oldest blood ancestors, ones who died long before we were born. They come as a messenger and custodian of indigenous knowledge. So I found a research paper that goes in a little bit into the culture of the Mandinka people. It's called The Forms of Initiation in the Mandinka World by Demba Sissoko. This paper is about the forms of initiation in the Mandinka world. It is based on empirical research conducted in 2011. It helps to better contribute to the development of the Mandinka culture. In doing so, special attention is given to the distinction between I don't know how to say that, and I don't know how to say that, and Sisal, which are all Mandinka masks, and the different functions they fulfill in society. The main goal of this paper is to demonstrate the role initiation plays in the Mandinka traditional culture. The study has shown that the Mandinka culture is very rich in practices. It has also helped to understand the different functions of that and the Fambondi play at the cultural and social levels. Okay, the words that I couldn't pronounce there is kankurang. I had to literally Google it and see if I could find anything like it. But it should be kankurang if I'm not mistaken. My apologies if I'm wrong. So we are starting there by section 3, different forms of the ritual practices of the Mandinka culture. So the first ritual practice is circumcision. He starts by giving the etymology of the word itself. According to him, the word ritual is a Latin word which means ritus. By giving this definition of what ritual means, he tries to draw the attention of scholars to the sacred practice of such a culture and custom. He shows the main practices which go with the rituals, namely the sacred, the religious, the habits, culture, and the rituals codification. In the same line of thought, he mentioned the omnipresence of the ritual in all spheres of life. All of these invisible things are true manifestations of its strength. For Linton, culture as a set of beliefs for a speech community, and as such constitutes a guidance in all circumstances of life. He also recalls the importance of culture, which has an undeniable role to play in the shaping of a human being. For the author, initiation is the completion of the social rituals, and as such it constitutes the last scale of social training. He also distinguishes two main socio-cultural institutions of the Jula traditional society, namely circumcision and initiation. He considers the two socio-cultural institutions as interlinked, but he still considers, in regard to sociology, that circumcision is only the indispensable prelude to a more important consecratory ceremony. A rite of tribal initiation, in the narrowest sense of the term, is a singular public rite performed by members of an age cohort that is necessary and sufficient for the admission to adult privileges and responsibilities within the community. The contemporary approach to ritual leads one to focus on the sorts of social identities that are performed by adolescents and on how the social meaning given to these performances is negotiated by the performers themselves and various groups within the larger audience. Classists have tended to pay more attention to the structure of maturation rites than to the content, and as a result have proceeded with a rather limited conception of the identities that are created in these rites, most scholars seeing them as creating only adults or only adult citizens. Such a narrow conception of identity might be adequate for the traditional societies upon which the tribal initiation model was originally based, but the identity of a young man was more complex than that of a young man in the simplest traditional societies. Small-scale traditional societies are for the most part organized according to kinship and gender, and male transition rites in such societies are conceived largely in terms of a change in the latter. The boy becomes a fully masculine man. This analysis of the author brings us to draw an inference on the contribution of rituals to strengthening social identity. This means that in any social group, people are organized on the basis of the rules that govern community. He also, throughout his analysis, tries to demonstrate that culture is a means to social identity. This amounts to saying that plays a very important part in the shaping of a human life. That's why the words of Genep are very relevant to this observation. A society is similar to a house divided into rooms and corridors. The more the society resembles ours in its form of civilization, the thinner are its internal partitions and the wider and more open are its doors of communication. In a semi-civilized society, on the other hand, sections are carefully isolated and acquired attributes to enter a particular house and to become established in one of its sections is in a state of isolation. This isolation has two aspects which may be found separately or in combination. Such a person is weak because he is outside a given group or society, but he is also strong since he is in the sacred realm with respect to the group's members, for whom the society contributes the circular world. For the author, in every society you have a stratification which allows people to adhere to a specific branch. In other words, members of a society are put together according to the category they belong to. Through these categorizations, they attain to acquire attributes, allowing them to move from one stage to another and fulfill their roles in society. Okay, second ritual is circumcision. Initiation, as announced in the conceptual definition, marks not only the passage for one social state to another, but also the completion of one period of childhood life for the benefit of another, responsible youth. This ritual involves, among the Mandinka people of Senegambia, purifications, character formation, and civic education lessons in which the newly circumcised are taught the behaviors, laws, and customs that govern the lives of adults and the community. Adolescents are usually circumcised between the ages of 12 and 16, but gradually the age which they undergo the operation is approaching the age of infancy. According to Mandinka tradition, the initiation rite is explained by a founding myth. Indeed, Mandinka people explain circumcision through three distinct systems: the cosmological, ethnographic, and medical, hygienic, and sexual one. The third initiation is a tradition, a period during which young people between the ages of 15 and 20 must undergo both physical and moral training. It prepares the young person to face the difficulties of life. No one can be considered a man if he has not been initiated. At the same time, he must undergo intellectual, social, and spiritual training. In short, this initiation is a social practice of great sacred importance. It is in this perspective that Alfred Schwartz, quoted by Babao Konati in his book entitled That. Okay. So this ritual initiation is the second phase of the passage from childhood to manhood in the Mandinka society, and this practice contributes to the training of generations to help them better understand some key values of their culture. After having dealt with that initiation, which is a generic for talking about the greatest cultural and social training school of the Mandinka people, we can also recall the female genital mutilation, namely known as excision, which is the next point of our work, but we're not going to look at that. So we're going to look at the origin of the kankurang masks that they wear during initiation. According to Fina Malang Fati, known as Manfinda, historian and traditional communicator, the appearance of the kankurang dates back to the era of the Prophet, peace be upon him. This dates back to the 2nd millennium BC. The Prophet Abraham was a member of a polytheistic clan in Chaldea. He was ordered by God to leave his homeland and travel to an unknown country which was to become his promised land. After a stay in Egypt, he settled in Canaan with his wife Sarata and his nephew Lot. There, God asked Abraham to circumcise himself as a sign of the covenant with him at the age of 48, according to our informant, 90 according to the Bible. Sarata, having no children, asked her husband to marry her servant Ajara, a slave girl from Abyssinia, who gave her Ishmael. It was during the circumcision of Ishmael and the other boys of the mythical village of Aqaba that the red mask appeared in the form of a bow that hid the whole head. According to Fina Malang Fati, to ward off the forces of evil on the recommendation of God, the Prophet Abraham made a miniature red mask called among the Mandinka. This miniature mask can be seen today in the fields and rice fields in the form of a red puppet whose role is to protect the crops against animals. Faced with the threat of sorcerers on the circumcised, God again ordered the prophet Abraham, according to our informant, to wear the red mask at night during the whole circumcision, to create fear and eternal fear among the evil spirits and wandering in the darkness. This disguise, called that by the Mandingo, continued to exist until the era of Dianke, Wali Sain, the last king of Cabao. So, in conclusion, at the completion of this study, it should be noted that initiation rituals constitute an important institution because they enable this society to bring young people to penetrate the intrinsic values of the ancestors, to know the place reserved for them, and to participate effectively in the common work. Initiation is a school that shapes man and transmits to him knowledge that he did not know. Through the philosophy of the teachings given during the initiation stays, through the ritual nightly songs and riddles called the young adolescents are taught the group spirit that constitutes the strength of this community. They are also taught that society is the only way for people to blossom and develop. This leads to socialization. Furthermore, the initiates are formally obliged to keep secret everything they have seen and learned during their stay in the sacred forest. In fact, secrecy and discretion are due for many reasons. It is more a matter of personal protection in the face of the fantasies of others than the primary necessity. It is possible and even useful to give everyone the tools to take the first step on the hermetic path. On the other hand, it is difficult to talk about the real secrets of initiation, which are of the inner domain, because they are by nature difficult to communicate. Each person is faced with himself in relation to what will be a personal revelation. I hope we can all see that today we still practice these rituals as rites of passage, at least here in South Africa. In other words, this ancestral spirit is a custodian of Bantu culture, and to be specific, Nguni culture, ensuring that knowledge of God's ways and laws are taught and practiced throughout the ages. In the same spirit, we will be looking at the older or earliest ancestors within the Bible to give us an example of the work of this ancestral spirit. The book of Joshua, chapter 3. And Enoch lived 65 years, and he begat Methuselah. And Enoch walked with God after having begot Methuselah, and served the Lord, and despised the evil ways of men. And the soul of Enoch was wrapped up in the instruction of the Lord, in knowledge and in understanding. And he wisely retired from the sons of men, and secreted himself from them for many days. And it was at the expiration of many years, whilst he was serving the Lord and praying before him in his house, that an angel of the Lord called to him from heaven. And he said, Here I am. And he said, Arise, go forth from thy house and from the place where thou dost hide thyself, and appear to the sons of men, in order that thou mayst teach them the way in which they should go, and the work which they must accomplish, to enter in the ways of God, meaning your culture. And Enoch rose up, and Enoch rose up according to the word of the Lord, and went forth from his house, from his place, and from the chamber in which he was concealed. And he went to the sons of men, and taught them the ways of the Lord, and at that time assembled the sons of men, and acquainted them with the instruction of the Lord. And he ordered it to be proclaimed in all places where the sons of men dwelt, saying, Where is the man who wishes to know the ways of the Lord? and good works. Let him come to Enoch. And all the sons of men then assembled to him, and all who desired this thing went to Enoch. And Enoch reigned over the sons of men according to the word of the Lord. And they came and bowed to him, and they heard his word. And the Spirit of God was upon Enoch, and he taught all his men the wisdom of God and his ways. And the sons of men served the Lord all the days of Enoch, and they came to hear his wisdom. So Enoch was a custodian, of the culture, the law, the Bantu culture. He was a custodian and assigned to teach men the ways of God and how he works and his goodness. He instructed them to learn about the ways of God and to perform the ways of God, in order to be in right standing. Here in the book of Jubilees, in chapter 10, we also read about Shem, who is another custodian of the ways of God. And in the 3rd week of this Jubilee, the unclean demons began to lead astray the children of the sons of Noah, and to make and destroy them. And the sons of Noah came to Noah, their father, and they told him concerning the demons which were leading astray and binding and slaying his sons. And he prayed before the Lord his God, and said, God of the spirits of all flesh, who has shown mercy unto me, and has saved me and my sons from the waters of the flood, and has not caused me to perish, as thou didst the sons of perdition. For thy grace has been great towards me, and great has been thy mercy to my soul. Let thy grace be lifted up upon my sons, and let not wicked spirits rule over them, lest they should destroy them from the earth. But do thou bless me and my sons, that we may increase and multiply and replenish the earth. And thou knowest how thy watchers, the fathers of these spirits, acted in my day. And as for these spirits which are living, imprison them and hold them fast in the place of condemnation, and let them not bring destruction on the sons of men of thy servant my God, for these are malignant and created in order to destroy. And let them not rule over the spirits of the living, for thou alone can exercise dominion over them. And let them not have power over the sons of the righteous, from henceforth and forevermore. And the Lord our God bade us to bind all. And one of us, he commanded that we should teach Noah all their medicines, for he knew that they would not walk in uprightness, nor strive in righteousness. And we did according to all his words, and all the malignant ones we bound in the place of condemnation, and 1/10 part we left, that they might be subject before Satan on the earth. And we explained to Noah all the medicines of their diseases, together with their seductions, how he might heal them with the herbs of the earth. And Noah wrote down all things in a book, as we instructed him concerning every kind of medicine. Thus the evil spirits were precluded from hurting the sons of Noah. And he gave all that he had written to Shem, his eldest son, for he loved him exceedingly above all his sons. As we can see, Shem was a custodian of the knowledge of the ways of God, and was taught how to heal with the herbs of the earth. And so the gift of Ubungoma is also one of the works of this ancestral spirit. So thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Please take everything you find on the internet with a pinch of salt, as your main teachers ought to be your very ancestors. And please remember, this is how I am taught. Tozani.